Hi there, my name's Pierre Jenkins. I'm the support manager for GeoEyes, and today I'm going to show you how you can take some raw data and format it in Excel for loading into our InstantAtlas Server product. So the idea is to give you a quick introduction, I suppose, to some processes that you can use in Excel to make things a little bit easier in terms of manipulating raw data into the correct format for loading into your local information system. Now, the data that I've chosen to use is downloaded from the World Bank website. It's, as you can see, it's in a fairly raw form here. It's data for 2008, and it covers a whole series of infrastructure variables, for example, relating to air transport, to the use of the internet, to the vehicles that are used in different countries, and so on. You can see the basic format of the data. It's all in one sheet. It's you can see that the countries are listed in the rows, and the country is repeated. The indicator changes in column B, and then the actual data values are across here in column C. And for many of the indicators for Afghanistan, as you can see, there is no data. For Afghanistan, the data kicks in here. So we have some, we're told that there are 500 fixed broadband internet subscribers there for Afghanistan. But as I scroll down through the countries, you'll see for Albania, the data is a little bit richer. Okay, so for most of the indicators, there are values for Albania, Algeria, American Samoa, again, a bit sparse there. Okay, so you can see how the data's been laid out. Now, this is clearly pretty useful as a raw format, but it's not in a very friendly format for loading into InstantAtlas Server. So to manipulate it into the InstantAtlas Server format, what we can do is pivot the data. So in Excel, I'm using Excel 2010 here. So if you're using an older version or a different version of Excel, then the steps might be slightly different, but the overall process should be the same. So if I click Insert, I have Pivot Table. And in terms of the data range, I'm going to use the entire data range and click OK. I'm going to drag the country name into the row labels box, indicator name into the column labels box, and the 2008 column I'm going to drop into the values box. We don't want the count. We need to change the statistic to just make it the sum. That should do the trick. So you can see now that on each row we just have one country. The indicators have been arranged in the columns. So as I scroll across here, you'll see the different indicators in the columns. And you can see the data values are showing there in the cells. So we've now managed to manipulate it into a format which is much closer to what we need for loading into InstantAtlas Server. I.e., the areas are listed down in the rows and the indicators are listed across in the columns. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy the data out of the pivot table. I just want the values. So I'm just going to copy the entire data range, create a new worksheet. I'm simply going to paste the values there. Okay, next step. We need to add an extra column at the beginning, because as you know, for loading in our InstantAtlas Server format in Excel, we need to have the area codes and the names. So we need two columns before the data values start. I'm actually going to use the codes are going to be the same as the names. So I've just copied column B and pasted it again as column A. So column A contains the codes, column B contains the names, and then from column C onwards, it's the data values. As you probably also know, the indicators need to be up in row 2. So these are the indicator names. They need to move up to row 2. We can delete these labels in columns A and B. We don't need any column headings there. Okay, we're going to delete the indicator names from row 5. Okay, row 1 needs to contain some sort of grouping label for all of this data, and the cells need to be merged across all the columns that contain data. So the easiest way to do that is just scroll right to the end of the data. Column BE contains the last variable, which is vehicles. BF contains a grand total. We don't actually want that, so I'm going to delete that column. I'm going to click in this cell in row 1, BE, which is the final indicator, and I'm going to hold down Shift on my keyboard, and I'm going to press the Home button. And that basically selects all the cells all the way back to column A. Well, we don't want columns A and B, so I'm just going to then hit the right arrow on my keyboard to move the selection back to column C. And now I can simply right-click, Format Cells, Alignment, Merge Cells. There we go. Now we've merged all the cells across all the columns that contain data. I could also have done that using the Merge and Center button up here in Excel, which is even quicker. And now all that remains is to type in some sort of label for this data. Well, I'm going to put World Bank data set. Remember that the value in this row isn't actually used in InstantAtlas Server at all. It's just for the benefit of the person putting this data together to remember essentially what the data is about. You can't delete row 1. You need to have row 1 in there, but the value that you actually type into the cell is not important. It's not used in Server in any way. Row 2 contains the indicator unique codes. They can be the same as the names if you wish, which is what I've done here. Row 3, you only need to do anything in this row if you want to include associates in your data. I don't want to include associates, so I don't need to merge any cells in this row. Row 4, you need to have the word numeric in here, and that needs to be copied across. Oops, didn't want to go that far. It needs to be copied across all the columns that contain data. There we go. And row 5 contains the date label for the data. Now, as I said, this data is from 2008, so the format for that in Server is 2008-01-01, pipe symbol, year. Okay, so that's a specific kind of labeling format that you need to use for dates and time periods in Server. And again, we need to copy that across all of the cells. In row 5. There we go. So I copied that all the way across. Okay, so that's everything that we need to do for the IA data sheet. So I'm going to rename this sheet IA data sheet. Okay. Now what we need to do is add 2 more specific worksheets which are required if you're going to load data into InstantAtlas Server. One is called Geography and Filters. One is called Metadata. So Geography and Filters first. This is a really simple one. All we need to do is copy the values in the first 2 columns here. So the codes and the names for the geographic features, and paste them in row 3. In cell A1, we need to include the geometry. Okay, so it needs to be either polygon, point, or line, and you should type in the word which relates to the geometry of the features that you want to show as you would represent them in a map. So ultimately, once I've loaded this data into InstantAtlas Server, I'm going to represent these countries using polygons in a map. So I've typed in the word polygon, and in cell B2, I need to type in the name of the geotype. I'm going to call it countries. There we go. Now, if the geotype already exists in InstantAtlas Server, then you need to make sure the value you type in here exactly matches the name as it is in your InstantAtlas Server system. So if you go into your IAS admin website, look at the geotypes page, copy the name from that page and paste it into this cell, then you know you've always got an exact match. If the geotype doesn't already exist in InstantAtlas Server, then it will be created when you load in this data. Okay, so that leaves the metadata worksheet. Now, what we need to do here is provide a set of system metadata about the indicators that we're loading to tell InstantAtlas Server how to treat them and what they are. So the way to do this is to go into IA Datasheet. We've got quite a large number of indicators, and they're listed, of course, their unique codes are up here in row 2. So what to do is hold down Shift, and right arrow to select all the indicator names, codes rather. Copy, right click, paste special, values, transpose. Transpose is the important one. Basically, we want them listed down the way. There we go. What we need to do now is type indicator in row column 8 and double click the little handle, and that will copy the word indicator all the way down to the bottom. Okay, and over here in row C, we need to start providing the metadata elements. So we're going to start with name. Double click the handle to copy that down. And then we're just going to make the names the same as the unique codes. Okay, there we go. So we've specified which names should be used, you know, the display names, if you like, for the indicators once they're loaded into InstantAtlas Server. What you can then do is just copy that entire block, paste it again, and change this to short name. InstantAtlas Server supports both a long name and a short name for any indicator, and you can use either on different pages depending on whether you've got enough space to show the long name. So that's why I've just changed name to short name, and then I've copied that all the way down. So effectively what I'm saying here is that I just want to keep the short name, I want it to be the same as the long name in this case. To save time. Right, again, I'm going to copy the entire block and paste. Again, now this time we need to provide the data, let's provide the theme first. So as you know, in InstantAtlas Server, every indicator needs to be related to at least one theme. And themes are the hierarchy by which you navigate data in both the admin website and the user website. And indicators can belong to more than one theme, but in this case, we're just going to relate them to one theme, and we're going to call it World Bank Infrastructure Dataset. There we go. Okay, so all the indicators have been related to that one theme. Okay, so you can now copy this block, and we'll paste it below. What we need to do now is specify the data type for each indicator. So we're going to change theme to data type, copy that down to the bottom. Okay, now the data type can be one of count, ratio, mean, no ag for a numerical indicator that's non-aggregatable, or categoric. So those are the 5 data types that are supported by InstantAtlas Server. This first indicator is called air transport, freight, and the units are millions of tons per kilometer. So that's a ratio. However, we're going to flag this one as a no ag type. And the reason for that is that we don't have the numerators and denominators to support the calculation of the ratio. Therefore, although it's a numerical indicator, it won't be aggregatable. And for that reason, we need to flag it as no ag. This next indicator is called air transport passengers carried. That's obviously a count, so it is aggregatable. The third indicator is the registered number of carrier departures worldwide. Again, that's a count. Fourth indicator is the burden of customs procedure, and it seems to be measured on a numerical scale from 1 through to 7, 1 being inefficient and 7 being efficient. Well, again, it's numerical, but that can't be aggregated, so we'll have to flag it as a no ag type indicator, and so on. So you can go through the full list of indicators and specify the correct data type. I'm not going to do the full list because it's obviously quite long here. So once you've finished, you can then copy the block, paste it below, and this time we're going to specify the number of decimal places. Okay, so obviously for this first indicator, it's, as we said above, the data type is numerical but no aggregation. Well, how many decimal places should we display that to? The best thing to do is actually look at the raw data. So there we go, that's that indicator for Albania. And we can see the value there is specified to 3 decimal places. So it would be a good idea in InstantAtlas Server to display the data to the same level of precision. So for that indicator, we'll put in 3. For the next indicator, well, that was a count, if you remember, so we can put 0 for that one. It'll be displayed as an integer, same for this indicator. This one, again, if you remember, was a no aggregation type indicator, so again, we can refer back to the raw data, and we can see that this one's actually displayed to quite a large number of decimal places here. Probably don't want to display that many in InstantAtlas Server. It's not good practice unless there's a very good reason for doing so. Let's display that to 2 decimal places. And so on. So you can continue filling in the decimal places. And once you've done that, that should all be that's all that should be required for loading this particular set of indicators into the system. So let me scroll up to remind you what we added. We added the names. Remember, what we're displaying here in column B, although it looks like a name, is strictly speaking the unique code of the indicator as entered into row 2 of the data sheet. Okay, so the values you have in row 2 here, and maybe I should explain, this is a common mistake. People assume this is the indicator name. It's not, it's actually the unique code, and there is an important difference. If you are going to add further dates, let's say, to these indicators in future, you will need to make sure that if you want those dates to be added to the same indicator, that you get the exact same unique code here in row 2. And the best way to do that, again, is to edit the indicator in InstantAtlas Server and to copy the unique code from the edit indicator page. It's listed up at the top of the page, and then you should just paste it into the right cell in row 2. And that way you know you've got an exact match. So row 2 contains the unique codes. so does column B, and there needs to be an exact match between them. And what you're then specifying over here in column D is the name, the name that will be displayed for the indicator in InstantAtlas Server. And in many cases, it's the same as the unique code, but sometimes customers wish to use unique codes that are not user-friendly for display in the front end, in which case they would have the opportunity of supplying a user-friendly display name in this way, in column D. So we supplied a long name. You also have the option of supplying a short name. Well, we made it the same in this case. We indicated what theme we wanted the indicators to be related to. We entered the data type, and finally, we set the number of decimal places. So that brings us to the end of this little data loading case study. I hope that's been useful. Do remember that this is only for, this example is only relevant for those loading data into InstantAtlas Server. If you wish to speak to our support team about this video or anything else, you can contact us using the details listed under support contact on the InstantAtlas website. And finally, let me just point you in the direction of the pages that display information about our InstantAtlas Server product. They can be found under Products Server. And there you can see, you can read about the benefits, you can understand how the product works, you can read the requirements, and you can view a live demo as well.